This is CBC Vancouver News.
On a personal level, not just a professional level, that doctors will start to see Indigenous people as human beings.
The Canadian Medical Association apologizes to Indigenous peoples for the harm the medical profession has caused.
Will that change anything? Has anything changed? Not really. Let's keep it real.
Also,
for the employers who were counting on LMIAs and work permits and international immigrants, now their businesses are in jeopardy as well.
Ottawa is taking steps to reduce the number of temporary foreign workers earning low wages in Canada. Why some BC businesses say the new rules will make it harder to find staff. Plus,
unfortunately, there was an error in the forecast that we used for the 23-24 school year.
And now the Camloops School District may have to make major cuts as it stares at a massive budget shortfall. Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. The Canadian Medical Association is apologizing for harms done to Indigenous peoples by its members. The association acknowledges actions and inactions by the medical profession led to worse health outcomes. And as Yvette Bren tells us, the apology comes amid calls for action.
A tribute to all those who paid a price in a healthcare system tainted by racism.
The Canadian Medical Association is deeply sorry for the harms First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have experienced and continue to experience in the Canadian health system.
Dr. Alika Lafontaine was the Canadian Medical Association's first Indigenous president. He says he's witnessed how the system treats Indigenous people differently.
One of my earliest memories of going onto a clinical rotation after being in the classroom for a couple of years was seeing two patients walk in right after each other, have the same set of symptoms, but one was asked to sleep off their drunkenness while the other one had full workup for a heart attack and a stroke.
The CMA's apology fulfills a call to action by Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The association searched more than 150 years of archives to own up to its past, while acknowledging the problem persists today. As documented by a damning 2020 report on the BC healthcare system and the story of Joyce Echaquan, who live-streamed the verbal abuse of hospital workers as she lay dying nearly 4 years ago. Racist healthcare also evident in forced sterilizations and segregated hospitals.
I'm hopeful that doctors will start to see Indigenous people as human beings and go past just as a client that walks into their office.
Joyce
Echaquan's cousin says people have lost trust. She says an apology is hard to accept. The CMA promises it's just a first step. Yvette Bren, CBC News, Victoria.
Most hospitals across BC will now have new nurse-to-patient ratios. It's part of an agreement between the province and the BC Nurses Union.
The good news is, in a challenging time in our healthcare system, is that we're finally starting to turn a corner.
The new ratios set emergency department figures at 1 nurse for every 3 patients in general emergency and 1 nurse for every patient in trauma incidents. Premier David Eby and Health Minister Adrian Dix say the province is focused on recruiting, training, and retaining nurses, with more than 14,000 new nurses hired since the start of last year. Meanwhile, as the provincial election draws near, political leaders are vowing to improve the state of healthcare in Surrey. Analysts say it's becoming an increasingly prominent election issue in the city, and as John Hernandez explains, it's poised to be a significant battleground.
We know in our city our health care is at a crisis.
Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke says her city is falling behind. She says hospital services haven't kept pace with rapid population growth.
The wait times in Surrey are extraordinary. They are the worst in all of Metro Vancouver by a long shot. The pressure on Surrey Memorial is incredible.
A mounting problem the mayor says both doctors and residents want to see taken seriously by provincial leaders. Earlier this week, Surrey Memorial ER doctors penned a letter sounding the alarm over deteriorating working conditions, the second such letter in just over a year.
They are concerned, and I can tell you, I've been at Surrey Memorial, I see the pressure points.
With a provincial election drawing near, both NDP and Conservative candidates have taken aim at each other's healthcare platforms, with Surrey Memorial and a new hospital that's under construction already becoming major focal points. There's even been some confusion about what services the new hospital actually offers.
That new hospital doesn't have an ER.
The new hospital does include a second ER for Surrey. Meanwhile, Eby is on the attack, saying the new hospital might get nixed by his opposition.
And John Rustad and the BC Conservatives, his first proposal around the hospital is, I'm going to stop construction and do a review about whether it's in the right place, whether it has the right services. This is the largest health investment south of the Fraser River in a generation, well, ever. He wants to stop it.
When we form government, we are going to look at all the projects. Our priority is getting projects done fast, making sure that the services that British Columbians need are there. By no means will we be leaving people in Surrey in the lurch.
NDP candidates currently hold most of the ridings in the area, but some experts say that could change.
In places where we have overcrowded emergency departments like Surrey, it will be an election issue.
This political scientist says the municipality could prove to be pivotal come election day, with Conservatives looking to capitalize on current frustrations on health care.
If the Conservatives are going to win this election, they have to make headway in the urban areas. They're going to have to make inroads in Surrey.
The provincial campaign period officially begins on Saturday, but the battle for votes in this city has already begun. John Hernandez, CBC News, Surrey.
The federal government says it's taking more steps to reduce the number of temporary foreign workers earning low wages in Canada. But as Saurabh Sandhu reports, some local businesses say it will make it even harder to find staff.
A 10% employer cap on workers who will apply under the low-wage stream of the Temporary Foreign Workers Program, and a one-year limit on all labour market impact assessments. Ottawa says the moves are meant to reduce the reliance of Canadian employers on the program and to tackle rising unemployment rates. But the changes have caught many in BC by surprise.
I find it interesting that the federal government hasn't reached out and talked to anybody where this is going to really impact us.
Demand for temporary foreign workers has surged in certain sectors in recent years. The agriculture, construction and hospitality industries rely on a temporary workforce to help fill staffing shortages.
It's just the restaurant industry in British Columbia has a significant shortage with cooks and chefs. It's just not something that Canadians are having a passion to do. So we need to feed our population.
Quality of the things will be affected because most of the workers, even the migrant workers, even that they are called low-skilled workers, in reality they are expert workers. They are expert workers in different fields, taking care of the elder, in construction, in agriculture, in the hospitality service. They are experts.
This business advocate says the new rules will leave many employers in the lurch.
For the employers who were counting on LMIAs and work permits and international immigrants coming into Canada to fill these roles, now their businesses are in jeopardy as well.
Last month, the federal government announced employers will not be allowed to hire more than 10% of their total workforce through the Temporary Foreign Workers Program.
What the government really needs to do is focus on reskilling and upskilling and ensuring that they are providing the investment there.
Gosal says Ottawa needs to look at the demands of the market across regions to help shape its immigration policies. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Surrey.
Travelers flying domestically from Vancouver International Airport can now save time when going through security checkpoints. Passengers are no longer required to take out liquid bottles, aerosols, gels, or large equipments from their carry-on bags. The Canadian Air Transport Security Authority has installed new CT scanning machines at certain gates. The technology uses three-dimensional X-ray imaging to detect explosives or other items that could pose a threat. YVR says it's invested $30 million in the project, which aims to reduce wait times for travelers. CATSA says the new machines will be expanded to other airports across the country beginning this fall. A man accused of 2 brutal attacks in downtown Vancouver that left one man dead and another with a severed hand has appeared in court again. Brendan McBride is charged with second-degree murder and aggravated assault. Police say the attacks were random and unprovoked. McBride was on probation at the time. He has a history of mental health issues as well as a lengthy criminal record. A car share driver was injured after he was apparently shot at with a BB gun in the Kitsilano area Tuesday night. It happened on West 4th near Balaclava Street around 7 o'clock. The projectile was fired from another vehicle, smashing one of the victim's windows. Police say it unfolded after what they call a minor altercation between the 2 drivers. They say the suspect driver drove away and has not been identified. Smoking rooms designed for supervised drug use are set to open in Vancouver's downtown east side. 6 new rooms are designed so people can use drugs safely with staff nearby to prevent overdoses. Overdose prevention sites already exist across BC for drug users who inject substances, but these smoking rooms will focus on those who inhale.
The rooms themselves are negative air pressure, so there's a constant flow of fresh air coming in and air being removed from the rooms. Once they are closed, they are not locked. If there is an adverse event, such as an overdose, our nurses and staff are on site to respond immediately.
More than 1,300 people have been killed by toxic drugs in BC so far this year, and inhaled drugs are responsible for the majority of those deaths. The Camloops School District has a big problem. It says an accounting error has led to a budget shortfall in the millions. As Jessica Wallace reports, it's now considering what it may have to cut.
School District 73 is facing an unexpected $2.2 million budget shortfall after discovering an accounting error in the spring. We're standing outside the Thompson School Board office here in Camloops, where a meeting will be held next Monday to discuss budget reduction measures to account for this loss.
We stayed as far away from classrooms as we could because we know that everything affects students. I don't want to downplay that, but we wanted to stay away from anything that would directly impact students as much as possible. So when you hear the plan, you'll hear that intention is really strong throughout.
Financial documents have already been posted on the school district's website, and they show gaps in the operating fund and also the capital fund. And now the school district board is going to have to make some tough decisions about where to cut costs in order to replenish those reserves. We don't know yet what will be cut or what kinds of measures will be taken by the board, as CBC News has actually requested details of the plan, but they were not made public in advance of the meeting. But we do know why it happened.
Unfortunately, there was an error in the forecast that we used for the 23-24 school year that wasn't identified until the end of the school year.
We reached out to the Camloops Teachers Association and the Camloops Parent Advisory Council, and they're waiting to see what happens at the meeting on Monday. Jessica Wallace, CBC News, Camloops.
The annual convention for BC's local mayors and councillors hopes to deal with an elephant in the room, namely respecting one another, getting along, and finding consensus for their electors. Chad Pawson explains why.
Whether it's a small town or a big city, mayors and councillors are expected to follow the founding principles of governance: integrity, accountability, collaboration, and respect. But for some, it's been a challenge.
I got off an elevator and I said, yeah, I'm from Camloops, give me the look. And they went, oh no, we're from this place and this place and this place and this place, and we've got the same problems. They're everywhere. And I don't understand why we lost civility.
Camloops is just one council that's experienced a lack of respect, civility, and outright disdain in recent years. They're issues that are preventing local officials from governing, and many of the 2,200 people here are looking for answers.
Codes of conduct are ways to set out the guidelines, to
guide behavior of elected officials in how they deal with one another, in how they deal with the staff, and in how they deal with the public.
BC is the only province in Canada where code of conduct rules are not mandatory. A discussion paper from UBCM lays out the benefits of enshrining them in provincial law, but also highlights downsides such as wresting autonomy away from local governments, which to date the Provincial Minister of Municipal Affairs has respected.
It is my expectation for local governments, as they are autonomous, that they find a way to work together and keep in mind that at the center of the service is the people that elected them.
The paper notes that dysfunction can have serious consequences, noting local governments that become mired in internal conflict may experience a loss of legitimacy, low voter turnout, fewer viable candidates, also low morale among staff who may simply leave. 70% of communities in BC have codes of conduct. The Okanagan community of Spellmachine is one without. It says any laws or rules are only effective if people follow them.
Our council decided to do respectful workplace training instead that accomplishes, in our opinion, the same thing. So you can have all the policies and all the regulations in the world, but if you don't follow them, then it doesn't mean anything.
The Minister of Municipal Affairs is looking for feedback if local governments want more provincial oversight, but many here at this event agree that bringing civility back to local governments lies with individuals acting with respect and decency while in public office. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still to come, Canadian researchers may have found a solution to get rid of dangerous artificial chemicals known as forever chemicals. More on that breakthrough after the break. Canadian researchers have made a breakthrough in dealing with dangerous man-made chemicals that are all around us. They are known as forever chemicals because they've been nearly impossible to break down and destroy until now. Darius Madavi shows us what needs to happen next.
And we are purifying the water.
These burnt wood chips could be the key to taking the forever out of forever chemicals.
There's no natural way for this thing to break down.
Since the 1950s, we've used PFAS for their incredible water and grease resistance in everything from paint to clothes to cookware to firefighting foams. But
the bond is super strong and we cannot really break this bond easily.
The carbon-fluorine bond is one of the strongest in chemistry, and PFAS can have dozens of them. That has let them build up in the environment for decades.
They have found PFAS in everything from glaciers to mountain lakes to killer whales.
But these researchers may have found a way to break them down. By soaking wood chips in an iron solution and then burning them, a material is created that can both trap PFAS and destroy them.
And a reaction basically degrades it into smaller and smaller innocuous compounds that won't affect the human body.
Many studies have shown just how toxic even tiny concentrations really are.
And they cause cancer, they cause thyroid disease, they cause all kinds of problems that none of us really want to have to deal with.
And they are found almost everywhere. In one study looking at tap water in Quebec, researchers found PFAS in over 99% of samples. And sky-high levels in some Canadian cities have made headlines.
It's in all of us. We can detect it in all of, our blood samples and breast milk and that kind of thing.
Existing treatment methods trap PFAS, but don't destroy it. So inevitably, it ends up back in the environment. That's why experts are excited for this new method.
I think it looks promising.
The research has been peer-reviewed. The challenge now, to scale it up.
It can also start degrading those PFAS molecules so that they're not just, creating a new waste product.
What's left are harmless byproducts like fluoride and safe, drinkable water, filling a forever need without the forever chemicals. Darius Madavi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here we have a very cool shot of tonight's moon, and if you didn't have a chance to check out last night's super harvest moon, well, you might have to wait a little while longer. Darius will have our full forecast coming up next.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at our weather. Darius, are we going to see more clouds or sun on the way?
Oh, a bit of both, Janella. We're going to have some cloud building into tomorrow and then clearing up pretty quickly throughout the morning and into the afternoon. Environment Canada is calling for some showers. I'm not sure that's going to happen. We'll talk about that later when I mention it again, I'm sure, as we get into the 5-day forecast. But for now, let's talk about what's happening up in the upper atmosphere, because that's sort of what's steering all the weather. And honestly, if we get into the nitty-gritty, there's just too much happening across the province for me to call out specific places. So just broad scale, ridge of high pressure built into the coast, also affecting parts of the southern interior, just clearing out some of that cloud, a little bit warmer, a little bit sunnier. Then that's going to start to pass away a little bit, and we're going to see this competition between the low pressure in the north. You can see that trough actually affecting parts of the interior, especially the southwest and the northeast a little bit as we get into tomorrow. But really, most of that is going to be steered towards the northwest. And then as we get high pressure from the south, those are sort of competing. So we're going to see cloud coming in and out across southern BC over the next few days and right into late in the day Friday. Then as we get later into the weekend and especially into early next week, we're going to have this much bigger, stronger ridge of high pressure built in, keeping us a lot drier and a lot sunnier. But with that being said, again, some cloud coming in and out, not really much in the way of showers coming along with it, maybe the very odd scattered shower until we get really into Saturday into Sunday. You can start to see, then we start to see a little bit arrive, maybe even earlier in the day Saturday if you're up on the North Island. But if we take a look at the rest of the province, you'll notice, again, lots of cloud moving in and out, and it's moving very quickly, so very hard to, again, call out specific places, but generally a little bit of moisture streaming into the northwest, then a bigger wave of it coming, and then that wave spreads down the coast and onto the North Island, and then continues down and potentially makes it to the lower mainland, although that is a little bit up in the air at this point. In terms of temperatures over the next few days, don't expect to see too much change. We will see a little bit of a drop, especially in the southern interior, like around Kelowna as we get into the weekend, as we get into Friday and then into the weekend. But other than that, fairly calm across the province tomorrow. Again, showers coming in and out for the island, mostly the morning. For places like Camloops, really just the afternoon, but mostly going to see some sunshine. And that's the story really across Vancouver as well, Janella.
Kind of nice to have that not scorching hot temperatures, but still a lot of sunshine. Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, that is your late news for Wednesday, September 18th. Thank you so much for watching tonight. For news on the go at any hour, you can always visit our website at cbc.ca/BC. We'll see you tomorrow.